Hello, Board Game Shenanigans here. I've decided to make this video because I see online on YouTube and other social media platforms, I see how people are in the board gaming community and how people are always buying new games and playing new games and talking about it, and just the general online sentiment there is about how we determine a game is a good quality or how many games we should be owning. I feel that sometimes you can see on the internet, you see people, always talking about the new games coming out and playing them and showing them on their YouTube channels. But I feel that sometimes there's a bit of a disconnect between people online and people who are normal and just ordinary and play the games at home. I think that there's this continuous drive of people showing, oh, look at all these games I've played, look at all these games I own, and people get really, really invested into board games really quickly. And in some cases, I've seen people say that, oh, they bought 50 to 100 games the first year they got into board gaming. And I feel there needs to be more discussions on what quality is in board gaming and what is an acceptable quantity and the best for board gamers to have in their collections. I feel that sometimes people state that online, oh, I have this many games, and people might try and imitate that and say, well, this person has 300 board games, therefore I should also be alright to have that many. But everyone's different, and everyone should really determine how many games they should own by themselves. They should really figure out what is acceptable for them, how many games should they own, and how many games can they play in the time that they have. Because hundreds, if not thousands of games come out every year, due to how expansive the industry is getting, we should be more selective in what games we actually put money down and buy, rather than trying to encourage people to spend more and more on games that are new. Some games release on Kickstarter, for example, which usually have a high price tag compared to a game that you would get at retail. So from this, I decided to define what I think is a quality game. And a quality game, to me, is a game that excels and is better than the things that you compare it to. In general, you can't have quality without quantity, because quantity is all the different types of games that you have tried and played and thought were good, and the ones that you think are the best of those become the quality games. Because if a game, the first one you've ever played, that will be quality because you will never compare it to another game. But if you've played 100 of that type of game, 100 deck builders, you'll know which one is the best one. So I designed a simple formula for this, and it's time plus value equals quality. And by time, I'm including things like how many times you've played the game, and how long has it been since the first time you played the game, and how long you spend playing it each time you play. For the definition of value, I'm including the cost of the game, how much you spent on it. I'm also including for value how easy it was to learn, and also the value of the components that you use to play that game, and also the value of how expandable that game will be and how much you can sink into it. From this, I've defined that quality is the enjoyment you get from playing the game, how perfect the game is designed, how consistent the game is to play, and then that equals also the final rating that you give the game from the experiences that you have had from investing the time and the value of the game. So from this, I've decided to list 5 things that a quality game can give you and 5 things quantity of games can give you. So one quality would be that you'll be playing the best games often. If you have only quality games in your collection, you will be playing the things that you like the most. Another quality you could have would be that you could make a hobby game out of it. You could have a game that you're so into, you play it constantly, you're always interested in it, you paint the miniatures, you have a game that you spend all your time on, and it's like a lifestyle. And thirdly is that you can tailor your collection to only the top quality games that you want. Instead of having a large quantity, you focus on, say, 10 games that you really, really enjoy and you consistently play over and over again, rather than having a larger collection. The fourth quality would be it encourages you to play games that other people own and go to events and board game stores. So if you only have a limited collection, you want to go out and find new games, you just go to socialize with other people. So that is a positive of only having quality games. And a fifth quality would be you hold games at a higher standard. The only games that you own are ones that are higher quality, rather than those that you might not feel that are as good as others. Having a large quantity of board games in your collection can also have many positives. One positive is you have a variety of games in your collection which you can change up and play anytime you feel like it. You're not limited to several games that you think are the high quality games. You can also pick from lots of smaller games and older games that you might feel that you still enjoy playing, but you're not limited to, oh, these are the best games ever, and you're not only going to play the games that you think are the best, because you might have games that are a bit easier to play that other people might want to play for the first time, and you can introduce it to them. I think another positive is also it encourages you to have a more rotation on your games that you're buying and selling, because if you had a leaner collection that was full of quality games, you might not be wanting to sell and part with games that you still think are the best. Whereas if you have a large quantity of games, it'll be easier for you to find games that you don't want to play anymore and you don't feel are good enough. Having many games also gives you more satisfaction on what you own and what you've been collecting. You can have enjoyment over just the simple fact that you own these games and you want to share them with other people and play these games. And there's a nostalgic feeling if you play these old games that you still own, even if you never really play them that often, they're still available to you. Owning a lot of board games could also help you socially, because you own all these games, other people will come and play them with you, and you'll get interactions with your family and friends. And because you have such a large variety of games, there's always something that other people will enjoy in your collection. And lastly, a positive with having a high quantity of board games is that you're also helping the industry and the little guy, because you're consistently buying new games, which funds the industry and makes more games available for sale, because you are financially invested in the industry rather than focusing on a single game or a single game company that you keep building on. You are actually getting a large variety of games, and those games that you buy can be from different developers, from different designers, and that helps people in the industry to show that people do enjoy the games, and it spreads the word around and will strengthen the industry and allow more games to be made. So then you have to determine what is a low quality game. And to me, a low quality game could come from many factors. I think a good example would be a poor rulebook. A poor rulebook would not be evidence of a quality game, because a game could be as good as it could be, but if you can't understand the rules, it's never going to be a high quality game, because you're going to be so bothered by trying to understand exactly how the game should play as the developer intended. And when it comes to board games and other media, there might be a time where you feel that you can play a game that you do feel is low quality. This can happen where you're playing with someone who does enjoy that game, or you're just doing it for the experience to see if it is as bad as people say. Like, hate playing a game does exist. This could also be shown for examples where you might be playing a game that's older that other people might enjoy, and you're just doing it to be part of a wider community of the board game space. This could be, for example, playing Monopoly. Many people do slate Monopoly as being a bad game, the modern board game audience would do. But it's still a massively million seller game that everyone understands and knows about. So there might be some times where you're playing this game with like family members of people or people who've grown up with it, and you'd still enjoy it and enjoy your time playing the game because, at the end of the day, it is a board game. It's there to you to spend your time on and enjoy with other people. So just because a game might be considered low quality, it doesn't stop your enjoyment of playing that game. Another issue you might have is about the size of the board games that you play. Some games take up no more than a small matchbox, so you can put many of them on a shelf or in a box and just grab them and play them whenever you feel like. Other games have large, massive boxes that take up way too much space for what they are. Some games are split out into 10 large boxes because of all the expansions and extra content they've added to the game. And with that, you might not want to have those sort of games in your collection, even if they are high quality. But 100 small box games could fit into that same space. But having a quantity of 100 small games, would you be playing them all because they're all different and you have to learn 100 different rule sets? Personally, I feel that a game that is high quality does not end up getting any worse. If a game is finished, complete, and you can there to sit and play it anytime you feel like, it will be something that is consistent and something that will always be high quality to you. I think that if you rush and believe a game that is new is a best game of all time, you will end up changing your mind over time. But if it's something that you've consistently played for many years and you've played dozens of times and you still enjoy it, that is a game that is truly high quality and it has held its value and held your time that you use in board gaming well, and that would mean that it's a high quality game. But that's not to say that some games could end up becoming boring over time. You could have a game that gets entirely replaced by a superior game several years later that has the same mechanisms but is more intuitive in the way it's designed. A positive with continuously buying new games and having a higher quantity of games accessible to you lets you take chances on new games that release and new games that you might find out about through YouTube and other forums. And doing that, you end up getting closer to finding those perfect high quality games because you are consistently trying and playing new games. Another issue you might have is a really large game that can take several hours to play each time you want to play it. And having a game like that you consider high quality, it might mean that you only play it once a year. And doing that sort of thing, is it really a high quality game if you never find the time to play it? But on the other hand, you could have a game that takes 5 minutes to play, and because of how easy it is and simple it is to play and how much you enjoy it, you play that game every chance you get, every time you play and gather for games. So if the game is like that, I would consider a higher quality game because of how consistently you end up picking it up and actually playing it. Personally, I'm of the opinion that expanding the games you already love is better than taking chances on new games that you are unsure if you're going to enjoy. And I say this because a game that you already have a high enjoyment of, if you want more content on that game to enjoy it further. Whereas a brand new game, you don't know if it's going to stick around, you don't know if it's going to be amazing until you've really played it. So, knowing that, if you know you enjoy a game, you should start adding to the ones you already like before you start moving on to new games, especially if that new game is a similar mechanic or a similar game design. Even when you have a collection of many games, let's say 100, you could enjoy all 100 games and only the select few that you call the high quality, top quality games. But even if you have this many games, the bottom games that you have played in that collection, you will still enjoy because simply board games are there to spend time and enjoy them. So even if you feel that it is a badly made game, then you can still enjoy it. And that's the positive with board games, is that games don't have to all be the highest quality. They can be enjoyed no matter how you want, and you just pick them up, you play them, and you spend time with other people. You could pose a question of whether you would rather have 100 games that might be average versus one perfect game. And with this, I personally would probably choose the one perfect game over 100 meh games. And this is simply because a game that's perfect is something that I would consider a game that you can continuously go back and play no matter what, and the rules stick in your head and you know exactly what type of experience you're going to have each time you play. But when you have 100 meh games that you don't actually have a strong opinion on either way, then those games you're not going to want to sit and enjoy and play, because you're going to forget the rules of most of them. They're going to be just sitting on your shelf, and just because you want to own them doesn't mean you're actually going to sit and play them. This is the point where having a collection of board games might not necessarily be for you. For me, I do collect board games and keep a hold of them and make sure they're kept in top quality condition, but it doesn't mean that I don't want to play them. There's very few games that I own that I've never played, and generally that's because I've had them more recently and just haven't had the time to sit and play them. I think if you're getting to the point where you have dozens and dozens of games still in the shrink wrap, or you opened and never played, then that's when you need to rethink the purchasing decisions that you have made in board gaming. Because if you own all these games that you intend to play but never get around to, I think that's when you should decide to take a break on buying new games and try and determine which ones you still own are worth it. And if you do that, that will end up making you have a more higher quality collection, because you will determine that many of these games you've been sitting on aren't good enough for you. So overall, in my personal opinion, I believe that having quality and quantity of board games are both important to having a good game collection. Having enough games to play at one time is definitely important, but also buying new games and seeing how they are will definitely improve the quality of the games that you have, because you are trying new games and then you have more games to compare to. And when it comes to determining the quality of the games you have, your experience will end up developing your own personal views on board games, and you'll be able to expand on individual games and figure out what's the best for you and how best to spend your own money and how best to be involved in board games and what type of games that you like the most. Personally, I feel this is an interesting topic to discuss, and I'd like to know what you guys think and what your favourite board games are, and what would you consider aspects of being high quality, and how many board games would you say is too many to own? Because personally, I feel that having around 50 games that I own, it's very hard for me to get around to playing them, because sometimes I do single out certain games and play them again and again, rather than going back to games that I might have played once a long time ago but really enjoyed, but I feel that I pick another one over it. Sometimes I see other people on YouTube say that, oh, they have 300 games, and I just see that and go, how can you play all 300 games? And in reality, most of the times they aren't playing those games. Half of them they don't really touch, and I think that that's part of the problem with owning too much. You spoil it for choice, and you always end up choosing the ones that are your favourites. If you watch the video, please leave feedback in the comments and leave your own opinions. And if you want to see more videos, please like and subscribe. Thanks.